In Lorena, Texas, Elizabeth Simcik DeMaria's Dreamy garden charms abundant wildlife and imaginative souls. Her desserts are just as popular when she joins husband Geoff and son Blake at the family's Waco restaurant, Tony DeMaria's Barbecue. When she and Geoff married, they also fell in love with 5 acres of Pastureland.
We moved out here July of 1986, and I had wanted it since I was a little girl. My mother's best friend lived on a farm out in the country, and then my best friend lived on a farm in the country, and I just fell in love with being out in the country. And my husband felt the same way because he had relatives that owned a farm out in Louisiana, and he used to, bottle feed the cows, and he loved it as well. So that was my goal from the time we got married, was to build a place out in the country. And I wanted a Victorian style because that's what I've always loved and still do. It was just nothing, just open pasture and little bitty, teeny tiny cedar trees, and now it has grown into this beautiful, what I call my little patch of heaven.
The heavy clay soil wasn't as heavenly as it is now.
You could make pottery. You could throw it on a wheel and just make you a beautiful piece of pottery.
Every year she top dresses with 13 yards of turkey manure compost along with mulch.
It will totally change the composition of your soil. In the fronts of the beds, I use pine straw because I love the way it looks. And then in the backs of the beds, I use leaves because it's free, because they're free and pine straw is not free. That's my secret to having beautiful, healthy plants. And I try to do everything organically as much as possible.
Against the open fields, she carved out an island near the house where she patterned seasonal color schemes against evergreen structure. They built a natural stone retaining wall that elevates the view and improves drainage.
We have it rigged up with our what's called a jet system. Instead of a septic system, we have what's called a jet system because we don't have sewer out here. And what it does is it takes everything from one holding tank, all the water from the house, and puts it through a purification, and then the sprinklers come on and water that retaining wall. And then of course drip irrigation for all of my pots, which makes a huge difference as far as saving water as well. And then the leaves and pine straw make a huge difference. If you'll pile them up thick, which is what I do, it amends the soil, it suppresses the weeds, and it helps so much with watering.
In late spring, cool weather annuals join warm weather plants that she started in her greenhouse.
I always like to have annuals in the areas that I see from the house, out my kitchen window or from my back porch when I'm drinking my coffee in the mornings, because I want color all season. I really love color, that's my thing. And so I'll replace all those with moss rose, the portulaca as they call it. I use a banana and rosita and fuchsia because I like brilliant color. And then I'll do behind that periwinkles in violet and white because that makes the colors pop as well. And then I also like to use angelonia. I use quite a bit of angelonia for summer color. And then coleus. In the fall I can't wait because violas and pansies are like my favorite. I love them so much. And I'll do dianthus, pansies, violas, and I'll do ornamental kale and snapdragons.
Down the hill, Elizabeth framed walk-around beds against the fields. To create energy through diverse height and texture, she layers annuals, fragrant roses, and native perennials and grasses. Her companion plants for cool and warm seasons guarantee nectar and pollen all year round for resident and migrating wildlife. There's always protective cover for ground-dwelling wildlife like lizards. Although her next project is to seed more native wildflowers in the prairie, it naturally grows its own waves of color and even a few native milkweeds.
And I feel like our pasture is my framework. I can do more of my color because I have the foundation out around us.
In front, she enlisted a designer to build a curving stone wall planter.
The land just came straight down and then straight out, and so it was just nothing but a hill of grass. And I just had a vision for wanting to have a beautiful garden there, and I knew that that raised wall would be the only way to accomplish that.
Again, partly it was to provide hospitable quarters for clusters of color. It also slows down rainwater flow on the incline from the street.
The front yard does tend to hold water more so than we would like, but we have it trenched so that it goes around the house as much as possible, and so that does help quite a bit.
Perennial salvias like Henry Duelberg join self-seeding annual larkspurs. Naturalizing Byzantine gladiolas add magenta hues to the mix. Evergreen irises, some hybridized by brother Stephen Simcik, sport rich colors against structural leaves. Bird of Paradise and red yucca add their bid for hummingbird and bee attraction.
It smells wonderful. The hummingbirds and everybody loves that tree, loves those trees. So when I found out one did well, I planted 3 more. And that's really my gardening way. You kill plenty of things to figure out what doesn't work, and then you figure out what does, and that's what you plant more of.
She trellised a royal purple clematis near the entry to give it standout attention. Throughout, Elizabeth boosts her personal touch with pop-out attractions.
I buy things I love, I bring them home, and I live with them for a while, and then I decide where they belong. And I'll move them sometimes 3 or 4 or 5 times till I find their perfect little home.
Her brother Stephen led her down the fairy garden path.
I've had a fascination with fairies and gnomes before they were cool. Back when I was a teenager, I had books and I had fairies and gnomes in. And I just love them. I think they're sweet. I love anything whimsical. I'm very much about whimsical and sweet. I just think it makes it more fun. I like it to feel magical in the garden.
Her handcrafted birdhouses were gifts from her brother David Simcik, a Dallas-based assemblage artist of found objects.
For Christmas, he just built me this beautiful birdhouse with the little statues and things on it.
Stephen gifts her with some of his garden-inspired watercolors. Elizabeth's garden reflects both Simcik and DeMaria family traditions of hard work, creativity, foresight, and eagerness to forge ahead.
You know, when you first start, you don't know what you're doing. You're just beginning, and I planted my first little flower bed, and then I started seeing butterflies. Then I started seeing bees and lizards and dragonflies, and then I was totally, completely hooked. And so that's when I just started saying, well, we need a bed here, we need a bed there. Of course, the problem is then you've got to take care of all those beds. But I've learned that the taller things in the back, of course, is prettier, and then get shorter as you come forward. It's a passion. If you don't have a passion for it, you can't do this. You can't. I mean, if you're somebody who just wants to dig a hole and stick something in it and forget about it, you'll never have beautiful gardens. You may be able to have a few pretty flowers here and there, and if you're lucky, they'll survive. But if you don't love them and nurture them, and it's a commitment. You're nurturing life. You have to be committed to it. You have to be passionate about it. And as I said, when I started seeing the little lizards and the tree frogs and the butterflies and the dragonflies, then I was just completely hooked. And then you feel like you have to do it for them. You have to continue to nurture that life as well. So I guess nurturing is a whole lot of it. It's that feeling of wanting to nurture life.